The Yangtze River Protection Law of the People's Republic of China took effect on March the 1st. It's the country's first legislation on a specific river basin. The Yangtze is China's longest river and third longest in the world, stretching over 6,300 kilometers across 11 provinces, autonomous regions and municipalities. Now, the new law strengthens the prevention and control of water pollution, rational and efficient use of resources, biodiversity restoration and conservation to balance economic development with environmental protection. Just how significant is the new law? How does this legislation fit into China's bigger efforts to protect its environment? I'm pleased to be joined by Ning Qiang, Professor of Art and Archaeology from the Capital Normal University in Beijing. Professor, thank you very much for joining us. Now, first of all, the Yangtze River Protection Law aims to do a number of things, as I said, including strengthening the ecological and environmental protection and restoration in the river basin, promoting the reasonable and efficient use of resources, guaranteeing ecological security and achieving harmonious coexistence of human nature and the sustainable development of the Chinese nation. What is the importance of the Yangtze River to Chinese people in general, and how bad was the situation that a law needs to be enacted?
Well, yes, of course. The Yangtze River has a long history interacting with human life in Chinese history. You see, recent archaeological discoveries actually prove that the Chinese civilization actually developed along the Yangtze River. So the Yangtze River is the mother river for the Chinese people. For thousands of years, we all depended on this. My own life story, like my childhood, I grew up near the river. So literally, I was brought up by the river. It's too my mother of the symbolically, right? So I think the Yangtze River Protection Law is a landmark achievement of the country, of the government, and of the people. It is very important because it's not only to protect our own cultural heritage, but also the ecosystem and the long-lasting, better quality life of the Chinese people along the Yangtze River. So I think it is a great achievement.
Yeah, well, this is very important, of course, and I grew up near the Yangtze River as well. Actually, my hometown is,
yes.
My hometown is also right at the water, so a lot of memory and a lot of stories over there as well. And basically, the basin along the Yangtze River is some of the most developed economic area in China as well, and traditionally most fertile and richer area as well. And yet, help us understand the context of this law in terms of economy, in terms of the ecological challenges that people were faced with, so that they had to enact this law urgently to protect this mother river.
Oh, of course. This protection law would change a lot of people's life along the river, right? Most important impact would be on the fishermen and the fishing industry.
Yeah, Professor, sorry to interrupt. I was asking about the kind of damages to the quality of the river or to the resources of aqua life, for instance, as we know that a 10-year-long fishing ban was also imposed in the river. How bad was the situation, and how would you describe that?
Well, the situation is because of the development, the rapid development of fishing skills or fishing technology. It could actually reach the level of extinction of the say fish or other related aqua animals, and the situation, I think, it is really bad because of the risk between human technological development and the natural adaptation into the modern society. So without such a protection law, I think we will lose the beautiful environment we actually lived in for thousands of years.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me bring in my second guest at this moment. He is Mr. Thomas Gail, former environmental advisor to the U.S. President Bill Clinton. He's joining us via Skype. Mr. Gail, thank you very much for joining us. So we have been talking about the first ever law to protect the Yangtze River. How usual or how unusual it is for such a legislation for any country, you know, to be specifically protecting a river and its basin. Are there any equivalents to such laws, to your knowledge?
There's some similar ones done on state levels in the United States to be able to have specific ecosystems that have some protections. Place they also have Lake Erhai in Dali had some special regulations come into place about 5 years ago, that protected the watershed basin around Lake Erhai, and then had substantial modifications made to improve the environmental quality. But this is very, I think, a positive step to help to preserve the Yangtze River.
You have also experienced living here and interacting with Chinese people, and of course I believe you must have crossed this river a few times as well. How do you look at the significance of a law being enacted to protect the Yangtze? What does that say about the level of environmental and ecological challenges that the river was faced with, and the kind of determination on the level of the nation to tackle these challenges?
Well, I think that it speaks volumes about the degradation to that natural environment, which has been, as everybody sees when they go over it, how severely it's been affected. And I think that it is wonderful to see the Chinese government, particularly at the national level, and President Xi himself, who are so concerned with these issues and enact these very broad new legislation to be able to help to restore the river and the ecosystem.
Professor Qiang, Professor Ning Qiang, from an archaeological point of view, what draws your attention from the legislation and the content?
Yeah, this is primarily concerned with the possible impact of this law to people's life. And also, of course, from my perspective, the archaeological discoveries along the Yangtze River actually flourished in such a way, in the effort we actually try to protect the Yangtze River. Because, so for example, we use the word to 恢复 or restore the ecosystem. And then restore to what degree? To 10 years ago, or decades ago, or even to the Tang Dynasty, dated to 1,000 years ago. So that is an interesting thing for us to think about, how to restore the ecosystem and restore the condition of the Yangtze River to its best situation. And I think the best situation is to strike a balance between the ecosystem and the human development. Of course, people living along the river want to live a better life, a more developed modern life. But in the same time, we want to let the Yangtze River to run in its own way, and the ecosystem to flourish, or to go as it used to be, say, 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. So we need to strike a balance between the two. The Yangtze River itself, the nature itself, and the human life.
Yeah. Well, we understand that the Yangtze River Economic Belt, as I said, has historically been a place where economic activities and human activities have been the most active because of the fertile land and the abundant water resources and fishing resources. And yet, because of such human activity, the environment and the water quality have suffered also relatively more because of that. So, Mr. Gail, how do you look at the impossible challenge of these regions, these areas along the basin to continue their high economic performance, to have high economic growth numbers, but also help restore, at least not further deteriorate the resources and quality of the Yangtze River?
Well, I think that the professor is right that there needs made between the competing factors that are on it. But it can and should be done because the economic prosperity occurred because people were taking advantage of the environment, which is really part of all of the heritage of the Chinese people. So by doing that, you had to a certain extent, I believe, an unjust enrichment of people who became wealthy because of the degradation they did. So you can have clean technology. And that is what needs to be done as we go forward to put that back, make the people who, gain the economic prosperity, have them contribute towards the restoration projects that are going on.
Yeah, a gigantic challenge, but this law will
absolutely
hopefully put some guideline towards human production and economic activities. Many thanks to my two guests, Ning, Qiang from Capital Normal University and Thomas Gail joining us from the United States. With that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.